Hey everyone. Every single thing your computer does, everything, from just opening a file to running a crazy complex game, it all boils down to one fundamental non-stop process. So today, we're going to look at the very heartbeat of the operating system, the instruction cycle.
So you write your code, you compile it, and then you run it, right? But have you ever stopped to think about how a simple line of code actually makes the hardware do something? What's the magic bridge that connects your software to a real physical action? Let's find out.
Well, at its core, it's actually this beautifully simple two-step dance. The processor just does it over and over and over again at mind-blowing speeds. It fetches an instruction, and then it executes that instruction. Seriously, that's it. Fetch and execute. So let's break that down.
Okay, so to really understand this little dance, we first got to get familiar with the dance floor and, the key players involved.
All right, let's start with a really simplified view of a computer. Over on the left, we've got the brains of the whole operation, the CPU. And inside it, it has these little, super fast memory spots called registers. Then on the right, you've got the main memory. That's where our program and all its data are stored, all neatly organized by addresses.
First up, we have the program counter, or just PC. The easiest way to think about it, it's the CPU's bookmark. Its one and only job is to remember where we are in the program. It does that by holding the address of the very next instruction it needs to grab. Then there's the instruction register, or IR. So once an instruction is fetched from memory, it gets placed right here. You can think of the IR as the CPU's to-do list item for right now. It's literally holding the task at hand. And finally, for our example today, we've got the accumulator, or AC. This is basically the CPU's scratch pad. Whenever it needs to do some math or any kind of logical operation, it uses the accumulator to hold the numbers and, well, the results of those calculations. All right, now that we've met the players, let's get this dance started. Step one is always the same. We have to fetch the next instruction. So here's where we're starting. Take a look. The program counter is pointing to memory address 300. And right there, in that memory spot, is our very first instruction, the value 1940. Meanwhile, the instruction register is just sitting there, totally empty, waiting for its task. Okay, now the sequence of events here is absolutely critical, so pay attention. The CPU looks at the PC, sees the address 300, and uses it to ask main memory for the instruction. Memory sends back that value, 1940, and it gets loaded right into the IR. But here's the real magic, the key to the whole cycle's efficiency. The instant that fetch is done, the program counter immediately clicks up to 301. It's already getting ready for the next instruction before we've even finished this one. Absolutely no time is wasted. All right, so we've fetched the instruction. It's sitting there in the IR. Now what happens? Well, it's time for step two, execute. So the CPU's control unit takes a look at that value, 1940, and starts to decode it. See, it's not just a random number, it's a command. In our simple little machine here, that first digit, the 1, is what we call the opcode, the operation code. An opcode of 1 means load data from memory. And the rest of the digits, the 940, that tells the CPU exactly where in memory to go get that data. So the CPU just follows the order. It zips over to memory address 940, grabs the value it finds there, which is 003, and loads it right into its scratch pad, the accumulator. And boom, just like that, one full fetch-execute cycle is done. But, one instruction doesn't make a program, right? The real power here comes from the fact that this cycle just repeats instantly and endlessly. That's what lets these simple little steps build up into really complex operations.
So here we go. The cycle starts all over again. Remember how the PC was already at 301? Well, the CPU fetches the instruction from that address, which is 5941, and pops it into the IR. And of course, what happens next? The PC immediately clicks up to 302. Getting ready for whatever's coming up.
Next, the CPU decodes that 5941. This time, the opcode is 5, and that means add. The address part, 941, tells it exactly where to find the number we need to add. Okay, to execute this, the CPU goes to address 941, fetches the data there, which is the number 0002, and adds it to the value that's already sitting in the accumulator, which, if you remember, was 0003. The result? 0005 now replaces the old value in the accumulator. Simple addition.
Okay, our little program is almost done, but it needs to save its work. The PC is now at 302, so it fetches the instruction 2941. The control unit decodes it, and this time the opcode 2 means store. It's an order to save the value from the accumulator back into memory. And here's the final move. The CPU takes the result from our addition, that 0005 sitting in the accumulator, and writes it back into the memory location the instruction pointed to, address 941. And with that, our tiny program to add 3 and 2 is officially complete.
So we've just walked through 3 really simple cycles. Now, let's zoom way out and talk about why this microscopic process is literally the foundation for the entire operating system.
You know that simple fetch-execute loop we just walked through? Yeah, a modern processor does that billions of times, every single second. I mean, it is an almost unimaginably fast and totally relentless process.
And this is why this all matters to you, especially for your OS course. Every major concept you're going to study, we're talking process management, memory management, handling files, security, the whole shebang, it's all built on top of this one fundamental cycle. The OS itself is just a really, really sophisticated program, and its instructions are being fetched and executed billions of times a second just to manage everything else on your computer.
So to sum it all up, this constant, high-speed loop is what breathes life into all software. It's the engine that powers every single command, every click, every keystroke. It does this by letting the operating system orchestrate all of the complex tasks that we just take for granted every day.
But, this kind of raises a question, doesn't it? If the CPU is just mindlessly churning through one instruction after another, how in the world does it handle urgent stuff, like a mouse click or new data coming in from the network? What happens when the OS needs to step in and interrupt the cycle? Well, we'll explore that next time.